People talk about a housing crisis, but it's been going on almost forever. It isn't a crisis, it's structural. Solutions, such as rent controls and social housing, have been touted for nearly as long. Rent controls have a 100% failure rate. In Britain, they were introduced during the First World War, and the government didn't even begin to dismantle them until the 1950s. Rents were peanuts. Of course, properties were neglected and turned into slums. There was no incentive to keep them in good order, and landlords couldn't have afforded to anyway. There was also a chronic shortage. Controlled tenancies changed hands for hundreds of pounds. A lot of money in those days. One trick was to charge for fixtures and fittings, such as a kitchen table. That was what rent control did. When it was lifted, we got what became known as Rachmanism, high rents for the same slums. We still have rent control in Sweden. Again, there's a chronic shortage, decades-long waiting lists in the most popular areas, and an ugly secondary market. It's exactly what one would expect with controlled rents. Social housing isn't a solution either. Where's the land for it? Who will get to live in it? And it isn't unknown for tenants to sublet at a profit. There wasn't an absolute shortage of housing in Britain until the population was allowed to rise by 10 million over the past 25 years. Even now, housing is not in short supply in many parts of the country. It's mostly a problem of the cities and London and the South East. One supposed remedy is to ease planning restrictions, but it doesn't help when the developer's model is to build slowly and trickle the houses onto the market. A prerequisite for a solution is land value taxation. It sets up a virtuous cycle. When rents are rising, it provides a buoyant source of public revenue, which one would have thought was exactly what the Chancellor and housing campaigners would want, but they almost never speak up for the policy. Land value taxation is a deterrent against land hoarding and introduces a competitive element into the housing market, since the tax has to be paid regardless of whether a site is vacant with planning permission or whether a building is simply empty or occupied. The owner has an incentive to provide the most attractive property possible and to let it at a competitive rent, so as not to be saddled with the land value tax bill and no income to pay it with. Why haven't the campaigners cottoned on?